ये देशमेगिना ये देशमेगिना नी नाम में सुमी सत्य साई अंचु नित्य पटना ये ऊरु जूचिना नी नाम में सुमी सत्य साई अंचु सत्य जपमु ये नोट विन्ननु मी नाम में सुमी सत्य साई अंचु नित्य जपमु ये चोट जूचिना मी चित्र में सुमी सत्य साई अंचु नित्य भजना ये हृदयमु चूचिना ये हृदयमु जूचिना मी प्रेम ये सुमी साई राम अंटू मधुर पलुकु इट्टी सत्य साई भगवंतुनिकी शतकोटि वंदनमुलु అందుకోవయ్యా మా ప్రణామములు మా సత్య సాయి. Travel to whichever country in the world, it is the name of Sathya Sai that you will constantly hear. In the city, every city, even into Singapore, travel and it is the name of Sathya Sai that is in constant prayer. Realize that it is the name of Sathya Sai that is constantly uttered by every mouth. Look around any place, the picture of Sathya Sai is prevalent, and that's where bhajans happen. Peep into the hearts of people, you find the love of Sathya Sai constantly greeting with the name of Sathya Sai. To this Supreme Master, to this Lord of Universe, I offer my Sashtanga Pranams. Respected elders who are on this online satsang session, and my dear young adults of Singapore, a warm, loving greetings to one and all. For the next 75 minutes or so, I would try to share with you some wonderful stories of the love of Bhagwan, some beautiful messages that Swami had given to us as Hyderabad youth, and also try to see if I could share with you those loving incidences of the interview room with Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So this is going to be a very fast roller coaster ride for about 75 minutes. Stay tuned. But before I move, I would like to also pay my respects to my beloved parents, but for whom I wouldn't be here speaking to you, to all my teachers and all the well-wishers in the organization and outside the organization. Sai Ram once again to all of you. I would like to start this session with a story that of an incident that happened to me way back. I keep repeating this incident again and again because it's got a huge relevance to all of us. This happened way back in the late 90s. I was sitting in the bhajan hall of the mandir, and suddenly Sri Chiranjeevi Rao Garu, some of you may be knowing him, a short-statured gentleman who's served Swami for more than 4 decades. He walked into the bhajan hall and told me that Swami is calling you come. So I was a very plump guy at the time, and I was sitting in the middle of the bhajan. By the time I could get up and walk out to the interview room, Swami had gone into the quarters. Well, a chance was lost at that point of time, and I was waiting there in the veranda. Mr. Chiranjeev Rao went inside, and after a couple of minutes, he came outside and said, Swami is busy right now, but he has asked me to give you this packet. It contains vibhuti, and he has directed you to take these vibhuti packets to one particular gentleman called Mr. Ishwar Prasad, who was a judge at that point of time of the Kerala High Court, Justice Ishwar Prasad, and he said you should go. I'm told that you're leaving by bus this evening. You should go. The first thing as you land in Hyderabad, go and hand it over to Justice Ishwar Prasad. So I was quite surprised that how would Swami know that I'm leaving by bus? But nevertheless, I took the packet and I traveled to Hyderabad. I got down to the bus station and then I took a public transport to immediately go to the place where Justice Prasad lived. It was early in the morning, around 6:30, and I knocked the door. The gentleman opened the door and said, yes, he knew me. I said, Uncle, there's a prasadam that's been sent by Swami for you, and I've come to hand it over. It was early hours. He took the prasadam and he thanked me, and I left. As I was going back to my residence, this thought came in me that Swami has actually given me an errand. He has directed me to do something. And in normal sphere of life, most of us, whenever somebody gives you some work, you normally go back, even in a corporate circles, wherever we work, you assign a work to somebody. So you go back and tell them that you have completed the task and that assignment has been completed. That's the kind of a reporting structure that we normally have in day-to-day life. So what I did was that I started thinking about it. I said, Swami has told me to do something. Is it not my responsibility to go back and tell Swami that I've completed this work? So with that thought, I went home. I told my mom that, I have to go back to Puttaparthi now again. I'll take a quick shower and go back. My mother was thinking that this guy is crazy. He just landed, hardly there for 15-20 minutes, and he wants to go. Then I told her the reason why I would like to go, and immediately I left Puttaparthi. I reached around 4:30, and that was darshan time in Puttaparthi. So Swami came out for darshan, and as he came, I was seated there, and suddenly with very great gusto and enthusiasm, that that you have that feeling that Swami has asked you to do something and you have done it, and you want to tell Swami that you have done it. You have a lot of enthusiasm and energy, that, and you also have that kind of pride feeling that you completed it. So I got up. I was a young guy at the time, and as I got up, Swami looked at me and said, Kucho. And that was a very sharp remark. Swami said, sit down. And the entire ego, the thought of that I have completed an assignment, everything got busted at the minute, and I meekly sat down. So Swami went inside, and after maybe about 10-15 minutes, I see a student coming in and saying that Swami is calling you inside. And my joy knew no bounds, and I started running inside into the room. And Swami was in the interview room. I do not know how many of you would have seen that. It's a very small room. It would have been about 10 feet by 10 feet, not more than that. And Swami's Simhasan was there. Swami had his arm on the Simhasan, and Swami was reading a letter. And I did not want to disturb him because he was reading a letter. I just went there. And Swami completed it. And Swami looked at me, Cheppu. Then he looked at me and said, tell me. Then I said, Swami, you had assigned me a work yesterday. I went and delivered the Vibhuti packets to Justice Ishwar Prasad, and I just came back to tell you that I completed the assignments. Swami gave me a very loving smile, and then he said, Chesko. In Telugu, Chesko means take. So normally in the Satsang circles, we all know that when Swami says Chesko, he means he's asking you to take Pada Namaskar. So I bent down and I was touching his feet. I kissed his feet, and I was getting up. I was almost at the level of Swami's chin at that point of time. I said, Swami, in Telugu, I said, Swami, idi na purva janma sukrutam Swami. So some of you know Telugu, a little bit of it will understand, but nevertheless, I said, Swami, this is the fortune of my previous birth, I told. As I said this, I was almost, my face was almost at the level of the Swami's arms. And immediately Swami's hand came like this, patak, he slapped me. One whap he gave me, and he said, Pichi Vadivi, mad fellow, idini vandaladi janmala sukurdam. He said it is the fortune of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of births that you are sitting in front of me today. Dear brothers and sisters, all those who are in this call or those who are listening to me do not know how fortunate we all are. It is from hundreds of births Swami has been tracking us, and he has ensured that we are at his divine lotus feet already. A lot of us, mostly youth, we feel that we would like to get close to him. We should reach his divine lotus feet. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, we have already reached Bhagwan's lotus feet. If we had not reached Bhagwan's lotus feet, we wouldn't have been listening to such sessions or not traveling to Puttaparthi or revering Bhagwan as Bhagwan. He has already decided that we should be with him, and he has also permitted us to be with him. So we are already at his divine lotus feet. The only challenge that we have now, the only challenge that we now face is that from Bhagwan's divine lotus feet, we need to travel about 4 feet higher up and reach his divine heart. And this is the travel and this is the sadhana that we need to do at this point of time to get merged in him. So, brothers and sisters, so point number 1, you have already with Swami. Swami has ensured that you already have reached him. Try and get into that sadhana mode so that you reach and take some space in his divine heart. This is the most important thing that we have to take up. My journey with Bhagwan started very, very early. It was in the 1970s, it was, to be precise, in 1973 when Swami had, it was Janmashtami, when Swami had called our family for an interview. And it was in this interview, the first encounter with Swami happened. My Swami had asked me my name, and I told Swami, my name is Gopi. And he said, today is your birthday. Then I said, Swami, no, Swami, today is not my birthday. I was a young kid who was in my 3rd class at the time. And I told Swami, my birthday is in November. Swami said, no, today is birthday. Then he said, today is Krishnashtami. No, Gopi Krishna. He said, you're Gopi Krishna. You're Krishna. And that is how the first interaction started. And when Swami had said, I am Gopi Krishna, I was only Gopi. The name Krishna got tagged to me, and that is when the new name of Gopi Krishna came into my life. And over the years, from then on, we moved, like any child, you also grow up with the society. And I grew up in Hyderabad, and that's how things moved. We were devoted to Swami, but we were not involved greatly into the seva or the service activities of Bhagwan Sathya Sai Seva Organization at that point of time. So I had passed my 10th grade, and I was a very mischievous and a very notorious guy at school also, and joined my high school at that time. You call it 11th and 12th grade. And it is at that time when I passed out my high school that in Hyderabad, there was a winter course in Indian culture and spirituality organized. This was organized with the divine blessings of Bhagwan by the Sathya Sai Seva Organisations of Hyderabad. And we had 2 eminent speakers who came in from Puttaparthi. Swami deputed to students of his. And when I heard these 2 youngsters speak in a magnificent hall in Hyderabad, I was wondering that if these 2 students can speak so well and have such a beautiful connect with Swami and spirituality, I wondered what would be Bhagwan's level. And that is the time, I got introduced to Bhagwan and the organization. I would like to thank my father-in-law because he was the one who had conducted and organized this uh, winter course. And I thought that this is the time for me to get enrolled with the Sathya Sai Seva Organizations, and I went to Shivam. Most of you should know Shivam. Shivam is the physical abode of Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, one of Satyam, Shivam, and Sundaram. So Shivam is in Hyderabad. And I went there, and my father was a bureaucrat, a senior administrative officer of the Indian government. And I was his youngest son, a very pampered one. And when I went to Shivam, and I joined, enrolled as a Sevadal member at the age of 17. I was just in my early 18s, And the duty that was given to me was to take care of the chappal stand. Devotees come and they leave the chappals, and I was given the duty of the chappal stand. And I was really aghast, and I was thinking, how can I touch somebody's chappal, and put it in the counter there? My father was a very highly placed officer, and I grew up with a lot of servants, and how can I touch somebody's chappals? There were people who would even bring my shoes for me, and in my home, that's the kind of thing, environment I was growing up. Then at that point of time, I was wondering, but at that moment, one day, there was a very elderly person, about 75 years old man, who had come to see Shivam, and he was not able to remove his chappal. And I was looking at him, he was finding it very, very difficult. So I bent down and helped him remove his chappal. When I removed it from his feet, this elderly gentleman put his hand over my head and blessed me. And that did the trick. I felt a lot of comfort, satisfaction in my life, and I felt that I was doing something wonderful in my life. And when this elderly gentleman blessed me, I felt my life was complete at that point of time. And that is the starting point of Seva in my life. And I was also called the chief of chappal staff. Then I had about 5 members with me. They used to take care of the chappals. That's a different story altogether, just to mention. Now, Bhagwan has come very early. Brother Ganesh, when he introduced me, he said, my family has been with Swami for 5 decades, but Swami has been tracking me from hundreds of births. That's what he said. So at this point of time, I would like to take you to a very interesting story of my family. This story is a lifetime opener, which will actually tell you about the grandeur of Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. As I mentioned to you, my father was an Indian administrative officer. He was the collector of a place called Chittoor in India, which this particular district houses the magnificent temple of Tirupati, the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, the Lord of Venkateshwara, the Lord of 7 Hills. The temple is situated in this particular district. And my father was an archaeologist, a great historian, and the first person to write a book on the temple architecture, the rituals, and the shastras of this temple was my father. So my father was a collector. Soon after he was there, he was transferred to this place called Anantapur. I'm sure that every one of us know that Anantapur is the district where Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ashram Prashanti is situated. So my father, once he was transferred to Anantapur, he became the deputy commissioner. He was the head of the 3 districts of Chittoor, Anantapur, and Kurnool. To those who are listening to me right now, I would like to mention that my father was born in Anantapur. He studied in Anantapur. He completed his education in Anantapur. And he also was working in Anantapur when we got into the civil services. But he did not know much about Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba at that point of time. Why I'm trying to mention this to you is that after he came to Anantapur from Chittoor, the local district authorities told him that there is a young Swamiji here in a place called Puttaparthi, My father has been very spiritualistic, and he loved to talk about spirituality and religion. So they told him that this young Swamiji is there. Would you like to see him? My father said, "Why not?" So arrangements were made for my father to go to Puttaparthi, and they all went to Puttaparthi. And at that point of time, you neither had these roads or anything. One had to go to Bukkapatnam, and from there they had to wade through the waters of Chitravati and then reach Prashant Nilayam. When my father was arrived at Puttaparthi, Swami was there. A very young Swami was there at the Chitravati to receive him. When he came there, Swami told him, Sitaram, my father was being called as Sitaram by Swami. He said, Sitaram, go and take rest. I'll talk to you in the evening. Well, my father being a officer, he rested for some time. In the evening, the encounter with Swami started. So there was a 3-hour long discussion between Swami and my father. My father had not even addressed him as Swami. He called him as Sir, and that is how the discussion went on. During this course of this interaction for about 3 hours, what happened was my father told us, the children, that he had 3 important questions that he had asked Swami, which were answered, which I would like to share this. This is a great eye-opener for all of us. The first question that my father asked Swami was that, Sir, you say you are a Swamiji and you are, you're adorning kashaya, orange ochre robes. How come, you say that you're also a previous incarnation of Shirdi Sai Baba? How is it that, you are wearing silken clothes? How is it that you're wearing silken clothes, but in your previous avatar of Shirdi Sai, you wore only white tattered clothes, but how is it that you're wearing this kind of clothes in this present incarnation that you say? Then Swami looked at my father and said, okay, what is the second question he asked him? When he asked him the second question, my father said, I understand that you wear silken clothes, but yogis and sadhus, don't have any attachment to materialistic things, they're away from materialistic things. But I see you're wearing 2 gold buttons on your gown. How come gold buttons, when you are a sadhu? It doesn't befit a sadhu's presence that you should wear gold, you should not be materialistic. And Swami smiled at my father and said, what is your third question? My father was expecting a reply, but the third question went on. He said, I see that you are traveling by car, Mercedes-Benz, and you're flying from one place to another place. How is it? Does this really befit a sadhu of pure nature to travel like this in such posh vehicles and stuff like that? And then Swami smiled at him and said, do you have any more questions or do I answer? Then my father said, please go ahead. And at this point of time, the counter question that Swami actually posed to my father was that, he said, Sitaram, my father's name was Sitaram. Sitaram, you actually wrote a book on Lord Venkateshwara, right? Did you not write? My father immediately thought some camp clerk or some assistant, a personal assistant must have already mentioned it to him. He said, yes, sir, I did. Then he asked my father, what kind of clothes does Lord Venkateshwara adorn? The first question was silken clothes. And Bhagwan is asking my father, what kind of clothes does Lord Venkateshwara adorn? Then my father, citing the Agama Shastra, the temple rituals, and I said, there's a particular hand-woven silk cloth that is actually adorning the Lord Venkateshwara idol. That is the kind of a silk. Then my father mentioned that this is the kind of silk clothes. Then Swami smiled. And he said, second thing, now your Lord Venkateshwara in Tirumala, what kind of jewelry and crown does he adorn? Then my father started narrating about the Vajra Vaidural, the rubies and diamonds studded crown of Lord Venkateshwara, and he went on to it. And the third thing he said, for the third question, why do you travel like this? He asked my father, when you take the Utsava Vigrams, the idols out of the Sanctum Sanctorum, how do you take these idols? What pomp and gaiety do you take them? Then my father mentioned there's a huge chariot that was given by Krishna Devaraya, the emperor at that point of time, which has to be pulled by thousands of people so that it moves. And the Lord is taken in the chariot. Then Swami mentioned, and he did not stop there. And he said this and said, if an idol which is made up of rock has got so much of grandeur, how do you think, the Lord himself has come down on this earth in this form? What kind of grandeur should this Lord have? Said Swami to my father. And that was the interaction, that encounter that actually triggered off the relation between my family and Swami. The story doesn't stop here. Then Swami went on and said, Sitaram, do you know what happened that day? Swami was referring to one particular day, and that day happened to be when my father was a collector of the previous district. He was a district magistrate and collector. There were some riots that had happened, and it so happened that my father had to order firing, and 5 people were killed on that particular day. And my father was very tensed up, not knowing what would happen the next day. And as he was sleeping in his bedroom, and Swami was referring to that particular day there. And when this reference was happening, Swami said, no, I will tell you. Then Swami continued to tell him, that night, that day you had ordered firing, you were very tensed up. You slept in the room, quite scared that what would happen the next day. At 1:30, what happened in your bedroom? Did not Lord Venkateshwara appear before you? Did he not tell you to arrest 5 different people who were supposed to have created amok the next day? So you went that night along with your superintendent of police and arrested that people. And Swami went on to say, who do you think came that night to help you? Who do you think came and directed you? It was me who came to save you. And by saying that, Swami revealed to us and to the entire world that Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba and Lord Sri Venkateshwara of Tirumala are one and the same. What a great revelation. What a great thought of letting the mankind know that Swami is an incarnate of the Lord Venkateshwara Mahavishnu himself. So with this, dear brothers and sisters, having said this, we are very, very fortunate that, that the Supreme Master, the Lord of the universe, has descended on this Mother Earth out of his grace to be with us. And saying this, we are very fortunate that we are all there. The Almighty is moved with us. He was amidst us. He was walking with us. He was talking to us. And it is the bounden duty of every member of the Sathya Sai organization, every young adult across the world, to take this legacy of Sathya Sai forward. With these few words, I would like to talk a little bit about the Hyderabad Youth Group. We frankly don't know. I would not even say it is the love of Bhagwan that he showered on us, that for over 25 years, Swami has guided us physically of what we need to do. So we all started as a small group in 1985. We were a small group of 3 guys. We were like porters. There were trucks of food grains that were coming in 1985. And Swami, I think most of you would not have been born during that time. And we were unloading this, and we were called the Sai Hamali Service, Sai Porters Service. And it is that moment that we got together. We thought we should do something. Swami has been very kind enough to accept our seva. For about 30 days we were there, and we consolidated this situation, and the journey from I to we, from university to universality, started. And this is a story from darkness unto light in all of us. So we moved on and we started gathering more and more youth in Hyderabad. In 1990, we started an adventurous cycle group, which, about 20 of us pedaled from Hyderabad to Puttaparthi. Swami was not there in Puttaparthi. Swami had moved to Bangalore. Then we moved till almost about 560 kilometers, close to about 400 miles by bicycle, and carrying a lot of material en route. distributing food, rice, grains on our cycles with beautiful quotations of Swami's on the cycles, bicycles that we rode. So then we had the habit of also giving telegrams, and finally we reached Bangalore. And by the time we reached Bangalore, everybody knew that we were coming actually from Hyderabad. And we were quite surprised because Swami has been telling the last 4 days, I believe, the boys from Hyderabad are coming with bicycle. They have reached this particular place, they have moved to this place. So Swami was tracking each and every moment of our 5-day journey from Hyderabad to Bangalore by bicycle. So we were taken care very well. And Swami blessed us profusely. And it is this point, when Swami, that was the first interview that Swami had given to us. Swami had spoken to us. He had given us a lot of gifts, clothing, everything. We were ushered out. As we were going outside, suddenly Swami called us back again into the view. Swami called us and said, I wanted to tell you something very, very important. I have forgotten, and I want to tell you. And he told us the story of Karna. This is something very important to all the youth who are on this particular satsang right now. Swami told us that, Lord Karna was actually in his garden doing some gardening work. And that point of time, I believe a Brahmin came and asked for some alms and support. So at that point of time, Karna, without even thinking, there was something, a bag of gold beside him. He picked it up with his left hand and gave it to the Brahmin. And this Brahmin was quite annoyed at this gesture because when you are giving dhanam, when you're trying to donate to somebody, you normally do it with the right hand, but not with the left hand. So the Brahmin was a little annoyed, and he asked the king Karna, said, you're called as Dana Veera Sura Karna, you are so literate and you are so knowledgeable. How are you gifting to me with the left hand? Then Karna tells the Brahmin, I believe, he says that, you came and asked me, and as soon as you asked me, I saw that this bag of gold was there. I picked it up and gave it to you. I didn't want even to transfer this bag of gold from my left hand to the right hand, because the mind is like a monkey mind. It might change its thought. So I didn't want to even to take that split second of thought of doing some good things. Saying this, Swami told all the youth members, you listen to me. Whenever you get a good thought in your life, you do not even wait for a split second. Implement that thought immediately. Don't even wait. If you get a bad thought, Swami said, postpone it as long as possible. And he said, this is the first message that I am giving you, Hyderabad boys. You take this message and go out and start your seva. And that was the initial thought, initial direction of Bhagwan that led us in our journey from that year in 1990. So, dear brothers, our journey went on, from there on, we went on motorcycles, we did so many other things, innovative things. Swami always used to like something very, very innovative that needs to be done. So, when, in fact, in 1993, Swami had come to Hyderabad. There's a wonderful auditorium that has been constructed by the Sathya Sai Central Trust in Hyderabad. It's called the Sathya Sai Nigamagamam. And it was decided that August 29th, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, was supposed to come and inaugurate this. So at that point of time, Mr. H.J. Dora, who was the former Director General of Police of Andhra Pradesh, was also there and a very ardent devotee of Swami. So some of us, the Hyderabad Youth Group, went and approached him and said, Uncle, we understand that Bhagwan is coming for this inauguration, and we also see that the Prime Minister is also coming attending this function. So the Prime Minister has a motorcade, motorcycles and everything. Swami is a lot of the universe. We feel very sincerely that Swami should also have a motorcade. So if you permit us, about 8 of us, we would like to be escorts of Swami. We will ensure that Swami's car is escorted by a motorcade of a motorcycle group, outriders. Then Mr. Dora was thinking about it. He was the Commissioner of Police also of Hyderabad. He said, okay, but I would like to take a trial of his. So he had a trial of us, and finally he agreed. He said, "This is good." So eight of us, all eight of us, we were decided. We had motorcycles. We had white and white dress, peak caps, white gloves, see Sathya Sai security force. We had badges, everything, and we were looking like immaculate, you know, personal escort boys of Swami. So we were at the airport, and Swami's landed at that time in Hyderabad. And as he landed, and the cars, motorcade was coming, there were almost about 10 to 12 cars, which came out of the airport. Swami was sitting. The moment Swami saw us, he gave us a smile, and we were leading Swami. I was right in the front, the first right across Swami's car. It was my motorbike. We had two front flanks, two side flanks, and back four flanks. That was the 8-member group. And Swami was very amused. And we reached Shivam, and Swami called us and said, "What are you?" Then said Swami, "We said we are escort boys." So it was the first time in the history of this avatar, an escort group for Sathya Sai Bhagwan was made. And we had the great privilege being the first group of doing this. So Swami was very amused, and he said, "What do you do?" And then he said, "Swami, we see that nobody crosses the path and comes closer to you, and we are the escort." And to tell you the truth, hundreds of people on the road used to rush towards Swami's car to touch him, to touch his car, to touch the glass window of Bhagwan's car. And so we were kind of, they used to even, do Shashtanga pranams on the main road itself when Swami's car was coming. So that was the kind of devoted people that we have in Hyderabad to Swami. So the D-Day came. The D-Day was that Swami was to travel to the inauguration of it, and the Prime Minister was also to come. So we started off. Swami said 7:30 in the morning. We got ready. We reached there. And I was right in the front, and we were moving towards the inaugural ceremony place, the Nigamagam, the big auditorium that was to be inaugurated. The Prime Minister was to come. All the who's who of Hyderabad were already seated inside. There were ministers, industrialists, top-notch guys. About 1,500 VVIPs were all there, and Swami was to come, and the Prime Minister was to come. So there's some kind of a timing error that had happened, and as we were just about a kilometer away from the auditorium, it so happened that a motorcycle police officer rides up to me. I'm the front of the entire motorcade. He comes and he says, "Sir, kindly slow down your motorcycle, or you would be forced to stop because the Prime Minister's convoy is reaching in a couple of minutes, and I would advise you to slow down." I said, "Okay, we'll take care of it, don't worry." And he said that, and he went off, and we were driving. We took the turn, and we were just a few hundreds yards away from the main gate of the place where the ceremonial function had to happen. And I see right across, maybe about 150 meters away, I see the Prime Minister's convoy coming in. Now, there was a decision that I had to take because I was the main pilot of the escort. Do I stop the convoy of Bhagwan and let the Prime Minister's convoy enter? Or do I stop the Prime Minister's convoy and do I take Bhagwan's convoy inside? Well, I was working with the government of Andhra Pradesh at that point of time. I knew what would be the eventualities if I stop the convoy of the Prime Minister. It will be a security breach, and I could be arrested immediately, and all of us could be arrested immediately because the Prime Minister's convoy cannot be stopped at any cost. So it was just a matter of maybe another 30-40 seconds for a decision. There was this young boy called Naveen, who was a very young guy at the time. He was in his early 20s, and he was right across Swami's left side window. He was riding a motorcycle. I gave him the signal, and he zoomed across to me, and he said, "Anna, yes." I said, "Go and stop the Prime Minister's convoy." He zoomed across, right in front of the gate. He stopped the Prime Minister's convoy. He parked his motorcycle across. Then he just gave a signal for the convoy of Bhagwan's cars to enter, and I drove inside. We went up to the platform, the porch where Swami got down. Mr. Chakravarti uncle was there. Mr. Dora was driving Swami's car, and all the elders were there. And after that, the Prime Minister's convoy also came in. Swami waited for the Prime Minister, and all of them were walking up. They were just walking there about 80 to 90 steps going up to the main hall of the auditorium. And by the time, We had parked, all of us, 8. There were senior police officers who had come, who had told us that, we had already, they said you're all under arrest, there's a security breach of the Prime Minister, you shouldn't have stopped the convoy, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, that's fine. The Commissioner of Police was also there, who was driving Swami's car, and he was walking up with Swami. There was nobody to help us at that point of time. Mr. Romal, who was a passport officer of the Indian Foreign Service, was also there, and he was looking at us. We didn't know what to do, what will happen, everything. Then I told the officer who was there, who was a very senior police officer, I said, kindly wait, let Bhagwan go inside, let him go inside the steps and let him go inside the auditorium, then we will join you for all interrogations. There was one step, and Swami takes this one step and Swami's gone inside. Imagine, on the right side, Chakravarti uncle is there, the Prime Minister is there, everybody is there, all of them were walking. One more step and Swami stops there, looks behind, signals to us to come up. Imagine if when Swami is calling somebody, stopping there at the last minute and asking, will any police officer try to actually stop us? We rushed up. We went up. Swami called us there inside the auditorium, ensured that we're very comfortably seated in a place which is very, very important, which were actually assigned to VVVIPs. Swami asked them to be vacated, and I said, my escort boys will be seated here. And the function went all very well. And as the function was done, the Harati was given. Swami was to go down to the dining hall, and there was a big pathway, where we were all lined up, and we were all standing there with our peak caps, great attire, ready to salute Bhagwan. And Swami comes out with the Prime Minister. As soon as he comes, we give him a wonderful salute. At this point of time, Swami moves closer to us. This is the beauty of the story. Swami moves closer to us, and he says, Narsimha, in Telugu, he's asking, Will Evaro Telusa? Do you know who these boys are? Then the Prime Minister was saying, Swami, then Swami very proudly introduces us. These are my escort boys. Swami introduces us. And we were so happy that Swami was introducing us. And then Swami looked at me and then at the Prime Minister and said, Narsimha, you know something? This fellow did a big mistake today. And Swami knew what we had done. We had stopped the Prime Minister's convoy. Then the Prime Minister said, what is it, Swami? What have you done? What did they do, Swami? And Swami then signaled, and I said, Prime Minister, sir, we did a mistake today. We had stopped your convoy, and we had taken Swami's convoy inside, and there was a security breach. That was what the problem was. Then Swami looks at me and said, why did you do that? Then the Prime Minister, the conversation is going on, and why did you do that was the question that Swami was asking me. He was adding fuel to fire there. Already I had made a blunder, and Swami is asking me again in the front of the Prime Minister, why did you do that? Then I meekly said, sir, Prime Minister, sir, I thought that Swami should enter first and then the Prime Minister should. And this was the situation. And imagine the response that the Prime Minister gave at that point of time was that the Prime Minister was telling Swami, this fellow did the right thing. He did not do any mistakes, Swami. He did the right thing, Swami. It is only after God enters, Swami, should I come. I am only a Prime Minister, Swami. He did the right thing, Swami. And you will not believe. And at that point of time, Swami makes this next counter attack on that, Then Swami said, but Narsimha, those police people are filing a case. And Swami stopped there at that point of time. They said, then immediately the Prime Minister called his National Security Commander, who was right there. He beckoned him. He came running. He said, the Prime Minister said, no case against these boys. This is Prime Minister's orders, dismissed. These are the words. Prime Minister's orders, dismissed, no case. And that was the minute of protection that Swami had given us, unbelievable. With saying this, Swami started walking with Narasimha Rao, and they moved a little ahead. Swami goes a little ahead, and suddenly he looks back and he looks at us and smiles with that love, that motherly love of protection. Brothers, who can protect you like this in your life? If at all, Swami had not protected us at the point of time, I'm sure that we would be still languishing in some jail right now for security breach. That was the biggest blunder that we had made. But Swami, in his divine love to his children, the reason why I'm trying to mention this story to you is that many of us feel that Swami does not support us, Swami does not protect us, Swami does not take care of us. We all should learn that when there is a need, when there is importance, that Swami's interference is needed, Swami is always there to protect us and take care of us. And this is the most important thing that we have learned from Bhagwan. That, in fact, Swami said, I am always there with you. I am in you, around you, with you, behind you, beside you. And this is a fact of life that has actually shown us that Swami is always there with us. So going forward, I would now try to share a couple of thoughts that I would, with Swami, that we had. There was once where we were all seated in an interview room, and one of the youngsters, this is a question that most of us would be having and must be bothering us also sometimes. He said, Swami, as long as we are here with you in Prashanti Nilayam, we behave very, very well. But when we get back home, it so happens when we are back with our friends and we are back to our old ways of lifestyle and everything. How do we avoid these situations, Swami? Is the question that a boy actually asked Swami. And Swami was so magnanimous in answering this. And this is a great message that I would like to say. Swami said, hey, listen, you're all like empty pots when you come to me. Each one of us, everybody who have now been with Swami for such a long time, we're all like empty pots. Swami said, when you come here, I pour the water of love in that empty pot. But when you go back home, what you do is this pot, you put it in the dry sun in the mundane concrete jungle of life. And what happens is that all the heat of bad things actually evaporate the love that I put in that pot. And that is why you get back to that dirty thoughts habit in your life. So Swami said, what you should do is, each one of you should ensure that you are, when you go back home from Puttaparthi, or when you attend a bhajan, or when you are in some kind of a spiritual retreat or something, you should go back and mingle with people with the same kind of thought process. And that is the reason Swami says, tell me your company, I'll tell you what you are. So company is very, very important in our life. So having said that, Swami's direction has been very clear that we should always have good satsang. And good satsang is the result of good thoughts. And this is about thoughts. And connecting to this particular direction that Swami had given, when I was in my undergrad program, I had asked Swami, sometimes I get very bad and negative thoughts. How do I control them? And I'm not able to control these thoughts. Swami, you say, control your thoughts. Swami very beautifully said that. All young adults on this call. Swami said, youth can never control their thoughts. It is highly impossible. Don't even try to control your thoughts. But Swami said, don't control, but divert your mind, divert your thoughts. This is very, very important. And the counter question says, so how do we control our thoughts, Swami? How do you divert your thoughts, Swami? Is when I asked him, Swami said, what you need to do is, when the way you have to divert your thoughts is, you have to get into good things, do good, have good thoughts, get into good company. So, and he beautifully narrated a story. He said, let's say there's a chapati, there's a plate, there's a bread on this particular plate, and there is some curry with that bread or chapati that is there. If you sit there and say, chapati come, chapati come, chapati come, it will not come. So what happens is, voluntarily your hand has to move into the plate. It has to pluck, make some pieces, take the curry, and then put it into your mouth to masticate and digest it. Similarly, Swami says, in order to evade bad thoughts in your life, what is need to be done? You have to get into good work. Involve yourself in good work, good thoughts. And when you start working into good things into your life, the negativity or the bad things automatically is left behind. So this is a great direction. We need not do so much of sadhana or anything, but get into good thoughts and good people and good work is the most important direction that Swami has given. Then there was also one question that actually came up about a boy, who was sitting in the interview room, and he had an injury, and Swami suddenly looked at him and said, "Hey, what happened to you? What happened?" Then he said, "Swami, I fell down from my motorcycle." They said, "How did you find you? How did you how did you fall from your motorcycle?" Then Swami said, I said, Swami, he was ready to reply, and Swami said, no, I'll tell you. You were looking at the poster there, the film poster, and your mind lost control and you fell. Then he went on to tell a beautiful story, which I would like to narrate to all of you. This is the story of a young guy who was a very good singer called Bilvama Gudi. Bilvama Gudi, he was a cowherd. He was not a cowboy. Swami was saying not a cowboy, but a cowherd. Cow herder, he said. He used this word exactly, And this guy, as he was in the fields and the cow, and they were herding there, then I believe a very young, beautiful woman passed by. And this guy, this cowherd, went mad about this beautiful young girl and started running behind her. This lady walked, and he was going behind, madly in love with this girl. And this girl went into the home, and her husband was actually seated outside. And when he saw this Bilvama Gudi, he came and thrashed him left and right, I believe, saying that you don't have the decency, you're running behind a woman who is already married, and he bashed him and all this thing. The woman comes out and said, she admonishes this Bilvama Gudi, and she tells him, "You're a crazy fellow. What are you running around? Why do you think God gave you eyes? God gave you eyes to look at good things, and God gave you hands to do good things. God gave you a mouth to sing the glory of God. And what are you doing?" And she blasted him. This Bilvama Gudi actually was so upset with his action. Swami was telling in the story. He said the Bilvama Gudi just walked back, and he went to a bush. He took 2 thorns and pricked his eyes and became instantly blind. Swami said that was a reaction and impact when he heard that he was not using his eyes and hands in the proper way. And Swami went on to say, this Bilvama Gudi at that point of time realized what the woman had said. And then this Bilvama Gudi is none else than Surdas, the greatest saint singer of Lord Krishna. Swami said that, see, look at you guys, what do you do in your city? You run around, you look that side, you look this side, you look at everything that is there, mundane and concrete jungle, you're all. Be focused in your life. And Swami gave a great direction to us. Be very careful. And he also said, after pricking his eyes and becoming blind, even then singing the glory of Lord Krishna, he could see the avatar of Lord Krishna. Such should be the stage of your mind, was Swami guided us. So that's one story that I recollected. I was just trying to jot down some stories like that. So the Hyderabad Youth Group became a very strong group. We have a few hundreds in Hyderabad. At that point of time, during the 75th birthday, we had about 550 youngsters working for about 45 days in Puttaparthi. And then we initiated the Grama Seva. The Grama Seva was one of the well-noted activities of the Hyderabad Youth Group. And we went on to cover hundreds and hundreds of villages. We used to go to villages. We used to do multifarious activities, medical camps, animal camps. We used to stay there in a village for 2-3 days, take care of the entire needs of that village. And slowly, we started spreading the message of Bhagwan in these villages. And that is how the Grama Seva Trust came into being. Swami constituted a separate trust for us to enable us to go into villages and serve. And this was a time that we also launched the Sathya Sai Amrita Kalasham, the dry ration kit which is very, very prevalent across the Sathya Sai organizations in India and abroad. And the government has also adopted this Sathya Sai Amrita Kalasham concept of giving rations, dry rations to poorer, weaker sections. So the influence of an activity under the divine directions of Bhagwan went so huge and spread so huge. In fact, in one of the interviews, Swami was mentioning that, saying that you start doing what I say, I will give you guys international status. And perhaps, I would say that the international status is today I'm talking to Singaporeans is the kind of international status that Swami has given us because we heard each and everything that Swami had told us. And most importantly, to the youth members of Singapore, I would like to say them once in an interview, they were a Bombay group and Chennai group also, and the Hyderabad Youth Group was there. There were a lot of discussions happening. And one of the boys, I think from I don't recollect which city it was, said he asked Swami, why do you call the Hyderabad Boys so frequently? Then Swami looked at me and looked at me and said, Chapra, you tell him. Then I folded my hands. I didn't know what to say. Then Swami said, Chapu, Chapu. Then I said, Swami, first thing is that you have great love for all of us, Swami. I said, Swami said, yes, correct. Then Swami, I do not know, but you have great love for Hyderabad, Swami. Then Swami said, yes. And the third thing I said, Swami, I think you like the unity that you have in our group. Swami said, that is the most important reason why I call you guys. So Swami looks at that unity. And this is the moment for all of us in the Sathya Sai organizations to be together. There are so many things that are happening outside the organization. People are trying to swindle each other, in the name of Sathya Sai, trying to demean Swami's name, and a lot of things are happening. And all of us, our flock together we should be united. When it comes to unity, I want to narrate another story. This happened, over a period of time. We were all seated in the Sai Hall, about 40 of us. So this is a very interesting story, but it's a great lesson to all of us also. Swami had walked up to us, and every time Swami, we were seated in Sai Hall as a group, we would count. I'm sure that most of us would have done. When Swami was physically there, Swami might come up to us and ask how many are there, and maybe he would call for an interview. So we were all seated there at the time, and then Swami walked up to us, and in a very charismatic, divine, enchanting smile, Swami said, how many? Then, we knew the number, and we said, Swami, 40, Swami. Swami looks, smiles at us, and said, you're wrong. And he walks up, walks back, takes a couple of spaces back, and he said, am I not there with you? Oh my God, we thought, okay, Swami, we are 40 plus 1, Swami, 41. And Swami just listens to us and walks out. So this happened like this the first time, this is the first encounter. After a couple of months, we were about, I think 45 of us were there seated. And this time we knew the answer very well. And we knew that if Swami comes, we are 45 of us, Swami is there with us, and we have to tell the answer of 46. So Swami walks up to us again, and with a smile again, he said, how many? Then he said, Swami, we are 45, Swami. You are there with us, Swami. 45 plus 1, we are 46, Swami. The Swami looks at us, smiles at us, takes one step backward and said, you're wrong, Ra. He says, you're wrong. Then Swami said, wrong? We said, we were sure that 45 plus 1, it is 46. Swami said, am I not there with each one of you? He says this, and he starts walking away. So the answer was 45 plus 45 is 90. So that was the answer that Swami had expected from us. So, oh my God, this was a different angle to the entire story. And next time we thought, Bhagwan comes to us, we should be very clear. We should tell this is the answer. So a couple of months later, we were 63 of us, and Swami walks up to us. We knew that Swami would ask this question very clearly. And Swami comes closer to us and says, how many? And we said, Swami, we are 63, Swami. And with each one of us, you are there, Swami. So 63 plus 63, Swami, is 126. Swami looks at us, smiles, goes back, and he says, you're wrong. And we are flabbergasted, What more do we have to tell now? Everything has been done. Then Swami looks at us and says, how long you guys have been coming to me? You have been coming to me from so many years. Have you not understood what? We are all one, Ra. We are all one. And Swami says, we are all one. That was such a great realization to all of us that Swami was trying to mention to us about the concept of unity. In fact, there's a different angle to it. When Swami asked us the first time, Swami was talking of Dvaitam. Then Swami spoke of Vishishtadvaitam and Advaitam. So this concept of dualism and saying that we are all one, that I am my, was a concept that Swami very clearly indicated to us that. So in our organization, Satsang organization, the concept of unity is the most important aspect that we should consider ourselves to be. And this was something that we, as youth leaders, about 35, 40 years back, we had practiced it to great extent. And I would suggest that all young leaders who are on this call, to be leaders of the organization in the international organization, this is something that we should throw light upon. Next thing, there's another incident that Swami had told me. This was time when when I was getting married in 1994, when Swami performed my marriage. During the marriage interview, my newly wedded wife was sitting with me, and suddenly Swami is talking. All the elders were there in the organization, were also there in the interview. Swami turns his chair, looks at me, and says, "You're a very bad leader." And I have learned over the years that when Swami tells you something, accept it on face value at that moment instead of going into asking him why, how, why, what. Question should not be asked. I said, "Yes, Swami, I'm sorry, Swami." And Swami says, "Why? Why are you not asking?" "Swami, you said I'm a bad leader, I'm a bad leader." Then he told me, a leader should basically know about each and every member of his group, what, where, what is he doing, how is he behaving at home, how is he behaving with parents, everybody in the society. The leader should have knowledge about it and also have a control about it. Then I was not knowing why he was driving home this point at that particular day. On my wedding day, as a gift to me, he was blasting me. Then I said, "Swami," then I said, "Yes, Swami." Then he went on to say, "Hey, why did you not advise that fellow?" And I was sapped, I said, "Swami, which fellow?" "So that fellow who's moving around with that girl." I said, "Swami, which girl?" And suddenly it realized to me that, I knew there was one youngster in my group, who was in love with another girl, and he was going steady and he wanted to get married. Then Swami, how do I tell them, Swami, it is personal thing, Swami. I can't interfere into personal. No, Swami said, a leader has to interfere and tell them. It is your responsibility. You are also responsible for this. And Swami went on to say that, that girl is elder to that boy. That is wrong. You should not do that. You should have told him. Then I said, Swami, meekly I said, Swami, I'll tell him. That is where it ended. But the other dimension to this is that Swami also went on to mention to me in that discussion, or maybe the next interview that we had as a group. He was mentioning about lot of youngsters are thinking that, since I promote universality of religion, they think that, they can get into interreligious marriages and intercaste marriages. This is happening. Swami started mentioning about it. Then he said, this is a misconcept that the youngsters having. We should not encourage this, he was telling me. And then he went on to explain that, you should get married in your own sphere of, religion, so that, you continue to have a very pleasant married life. And he said, what happens is you get married, to different religions. There is always a culture shock. First year, second year, life will be very good. But after the second year, third year, the culture problem comes in, and that is when culture shocks come, and that is the reason why divorces are happening. So this is one other concept that I thought I should share on this forum, because, we have youngsters, if you want to marry. And in fact, the thought also went on during an interaction with Bhagwan. One of the boys said, Swami, we don't want to get married, Swami. We want to continue to serve you. And that a lot of youngsters, in our group didn't want to get married. Then Swami, the thought was that a lot of people had this thought that Swami was asking boys and referring boys not to get married. This is a wrong concept. Swami very, very clearly, very ambiguously said, Bangaru, he said, I have never instructed people not to get married. In fact, he said, it is better to get married than to stay as a bachelor and get into wrongful ways. he made a very clear direction on this. So I just wanted to share this, suggest this also. And Swami said, get married and be on the royal path. All of you can get married. He told us in the interview, all of you can get married. I have nothing to say about this. But one other boy just got up to say, the Swami, once we get married, we get into a lot of attachment, isn't it? Then Swami said, what is wrong getting into an attachment? Be in your own limits. So I've never said not to get into attachment as long as it is in reasonable way. So Swami went on to say, you may love your life, you may love your wife very, very dearly, but you also love other beings around you. But don't make your wife your life. That is where the problem comes. And that is where your attachment comes. So be very careful. And he said, and you should also marry and also take care of the inherited associated responsibilities in life. This is something that the youth should always think about. So this is the direction that Bhagwan had given, that you should get married. Don't stay out, not getting married. Be on the royal path and go forward in your life. So that is how life turned out to us in 1996. It so happened we were all seated in the cyclone hall. Our boys had the very great opportunity of running the kitchen for every function till date. Bhagwan has given us the opportunity of cooking in the kitchen as well as food distribution is taken care. We've been doing that for almost right from 1985 till date. And at this point of time, I think it was during 1996, early 1996. I think we were all seated. We were all called for a Padnamaskaram. Swami came, and then there are some elders were there. We were all seated there with the clothes very dirty, having been working for about 40 days in the kitchen. We've been cooking for the birthday celebrations. Then Swami suddenly tells an elder, these 5 boys? He looked at, and we were 5 of us who were sitting there. Then Swami tells the elderly people of the organization, these boys have written a letter to me that they want to hold a Sathya Sai World Youth Conference. And this was the biggest bomb that Swami had exploded at that point of time in cyclones. All the elders were actually mad with us. They were thinking, these guys are going beyond their limits and everything, because it was the direction given by Swami. We were following Swami's directions with giving all the respect, all the thing to the elders. Every activity that we were doing for 30 years were under information and guidance from the elders. That is how we led our youth movement in India, and we still do that in India. That's how it is. Then one of the elders reacted to that. Swami, these young boys are like that. They take decisions, they tell you, and they go ahead and do it. And that is the problem with these boys, Swami. And he pointed me out. I had a beautiful mush at the time. I was very young and dynamic. And then Swami smiled and said, no, just wait and see. These boys will do a first World Youth Conference they're going to do. And that started off. And in 1997, Swami actually accepted the proposal. We had the first World Youth Conference. And the Sathya Sai Youth Wing was formed in the year 1997 after the first World Youth Conference. So there's a history to the entire youth movement across the world and how it came into being. So Grama Seva Trust, I told you about it. There I have, in fact, let me also tell you this. Swami had very, very intimately told us that you do seva and it is I who will take care of you. All the Hyderabad Youth Group members, who've been involved in seva over decades, are very well settled, with very good families and progressing well. In fact, one brother who now lives in UK, I think he's come back to India for good now. Sunil, when Swami was giving Padnamaskaram to all of us, and Swami walks up to us and says, this guy gets up and Swami says, Swami, give us an opportunity of doing seva. Then Swami said, what are you guys doing now? You're doing seva. Swami, give us more opportunities to do seva. Then Swami made a beautiful statement that day. He said in Telugu, Meeru na seva chestu pondi, chestu pondi, chestu pondi. Ee Sai me seva chestu potadu, chestu potadu, chestu potadu. He said that you boys continue to do serve, serve, serve. And I promise that this Sai will continue to serve you, you. You do my work and I do your work. And we are solid examples in life that Swami is in and out with us always, at, helping us and guiding us and taking our lives forward. Now, there is a lot of youngsters, who have this thought that post Swami's Mahasamadhi, Swami, after his Mahasamadhi, a lot of people stopped coming to Puttaparthi, and they think that, Swami is always present in their own hearts, in their own homes and everything. But I would advise that you need to charge yourself, and the best place to recharge yourself is Prashant Nilayam. Do not avoid to not to come to Puttaparthi. Come for a couple of days, spend time. That is your home. Swami is always expecting you to be there, and it is our bounden duty that we visit our mother's place as long as we live. This is very, very important, because I did hear a lot of my friends saying that Swami kahan hai, be physical, he's not there. So what is there? We can think of Swami, pray from our own homes. Yes, you can do that. There is no question about it. But nevertheless, Puttaparthi is the abode where Swami still lives on. I'm telling you, and I would like to share an incident that happened to me in 2014, and this is a great revelation of Bhagwan's divine presence. I was traveling from Hyderabad to United States on official work, and I was supposed to go to Denver for an official meeting. And at that point of time, I was just about to leave, and younger brother, who's very, very, very close to me, a part of our youth group, called me and said, Anna, I heard that you're going to US. I have a packet of medical samples that I would like you to carry with you. It has to be handed over to a friend of mine in New York. If you could get into US and maybe courier it from there, it'll be great. I knew him so well, and I said, okay, fine, send it over to me. But I asked him, do you have the documentation for all this? He said, I have all the documentation, everything is available with me. So he said, I'll meet you at the airport and I'll hand it over to you at the airport. He did that. So he came to the airport and he had a big cover of samples, and he gave me some documentation saying that these are all FDA approved documentation. And I frankly didn't know which company samples were there and all these things. The trust that I had in this younger brother of mine, I took it and I distributed all the samples in 3 different suitcases that I was carrying, my carry-on and 2 other checked-in baggage, and we left to US. The customs cleared it in Hyderabad. It was a direct flight to. I was flying into Chicago, and there was a plastic surgeon with me who was also traveling with me to the US. So I told my colleague to go to the green channel. I said, I have the samples. I just tell these guys at the customs that I'm carrying the samples, and then walk out. So I went to the customs department in Chicago, and I went, and there was a lady officer there, and I told her that I pulled out from my carry-on. I said, I have the samples that I'm carrying. This is the documentation. I just wanted to declare this before I walk out from this airport. And she said, please wait. And she looked at the documentation first, and she looked at the medicine samples and everything. And she went back and forth. And then she came and said, I'm sorry, sir, but you're not permitted to carry these medicines into this country. These are banned drugs. I said, oh, is it? I didn't know, but this was given to me by my friend, and that's why I'm carrying this. She said, it's fine, but what is this documentation? She said, these are documentation that FDA approved. These are all bogus. These documentations are not original documentation of the FDA, and these don't, you're not permitted. We will ask you to step aside, and we'll have to interrogate you. Oh my God, that was the biggest traumatic, experience that I had in Chicago on landing. Then I tried to convince her, saying that no, these are eye drops and these are ear drops. Then she started asking me a question. What is the company, sir? And do you know which company it is going to in the United States? Well, I didn't know that. I only knew the name of the person whom I have to courier it. She asked me, do you know the company who have prepared this documentation and given it to you? I said, I don't know. This is a very good friend of mine. So she said, oh, you don't know the person who gave it to you. You don't know the person to whom you're sending this. And you're carrying this all the way from India into this country, which is banned. The drugs are banned. I'm sorry, sir. And you will not believe a bunch of officers took me into a very strong room, interrogation room, a steel room. They made me sit. They didn't give me water. They didn't let me call. I said, I would like to call my brother. My brother was head of World Bank for African continent. And I wanted to call my brother. I wanted to call my friends in the US. They said, sorry, sir, we cannot permit any calls, anything. The captain has to come. You'll be under interrogation. And they've used the most filthiest language that they could use on me at that point of time. And that is the point of scare that I had in my life. I was sitting all alone in that room, not knowing what to do. Then it so happened that I was thinking, what do I do? Then I told them, no, I'm speaking the truth and this is what it is. They were not ready to listen to me at all. And after a couple of hours of mental torture that they gave me, and perhaps that was the only time that I cried in my life very bitterly. I cried and I'm not knowing what to do. And they said that there's an officer will be coming right now. But one of the officers came and told me that, let me tell you something. The guy who's going to come, a captain, may not even help you out because he told me that the guy was a Pakistani and he may not like to support an Indian. Basically, look out, I'm also telling you that he told me that, I was seated there for a couple of hours and then a stock statured gentleman comes in. He had his nameplate called Mustafa. And he came in and said, yes, man, what's happening? Then he said, hey, you guys are carrying drugs from India. And he started blasting me left and right. I told him, no, listen to me. This is what it is. I told him the entire story once again. He was not ready to leave. Then I told him, listen, I am speaking the truth, but nothing but the truth. And then I went on to tell him, listen, I belong to a very reputed organization called the Sathya Sai Seva Organization. And I tell you, I have my identity card of the Sathya Sai organization also. I am speaking the truth, but I don't speak nothing but the truth. He said, no, I don't believe on this, these drugs, Then they made me pay about $200 to get the samples tested and everything. And the testing was going on. And I was scared badly. And, I was on the verge of total breakdown at that point of time. They said, we'll either have to arrest you or we'll have to deport you back to India by filing a case against you. At this point of time, I said, no, you should listen. See, and I told him, sir, listen to me. See, this is one set of samples I still have in both my suitcases. I have samples, I have in the suitcase also. Oh, he said, you have more samples you did not declare? Then he asked me to open the second suitcase. There was a packet, the second packet, which was kept in the second suitcase. He pulled out and they said, he sent that for it. I said, sir, I have more samples even in this. And he said, open it up. I was, the moment I opened the suitcase, right on top of the suitcase, there is the book which we publish once in 5 years from Hyderabad. I had taken some copies of this book to be given to some friends of mine. The book, the Sathya Sai, the Lord of the Universe. The book is actually, I had packed these books very neatly into a brown wrapper and kept it beneath at the bottom of the suitcase. But when I open it, there's a book at the top there, and then this guy looks at me. This Mustafa looks at me. The moment I see that, I said, sir, I was mentioning to you about Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and I told you that I'm a member of the Sathya Sai Nation. I'm talking about this person, sir. This is the personality. This is the phenomenon that I'm talking about. This is Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And this guy, Mustafa, stares at Swami's photograph, looks at me, stares at the photographs, looks at me. And I'm going through this traumatic experience. What is this guy? And he looks at the photograph and says, who is this guy? And then I said, this is what I'm talking about. I said, Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, he's a spiritual master, he's an avatar. I tried to explain about Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Then he asked me, does this guy have an office in Pakistan? I said, I didn't know what he was talking about in Pakistan. How do I know about what? Then he said, a friend of mine, a cousin of mine had told me that, they do some medical camps, and I saw a picture of this guy in my cousin's place and stuff like that. Then he looks at me and suddenly he calls his officers and says, release this guy is speaking the truth. And he says that, and tears rolled down my eyes at that point. And you will not believe that I never put that book there. I do not know how it came there. And you will not believe this particular police officer ensured that I was escorted. Two officers came with me. They checked out all the samples that I had. They took me to a place where, I was asked to destroy the samples. They took me to the counter. I missed my Denver flight. They ensured that I got my ticket extended on free charges to travel again. They also ensured that I get a hotel expenses fully paid. They ensured that the vehicle picked me up, dropped me at the hotel, and he took care of me totally. Now, let me tell you, brothers, in a place where I knew none, there was nobody to support me. There was nothing, no person in that customs department was not ready to help me. There was one Pakistani officer who was a born Pakistani guy who came and sees Swami's photograph and says, "This guy is speaking the truth." What more evidence do we need? What more do we need in our lives to actually tell that Swami is physically present with us? Swami is all around us. And that is the time I came back and I told my friends, family, I said, if anybody has got this, mental feeling that Swami physically is not with us, here is a standing incident, an example of divinity being present in Chicago airport to help a distressed, a soul who is trying to follow him still. I'm not even saying myself as a devotee. I'm trying to follow Bhagwan still. And this is the kind of love Swami gives us. So, dear brothers and sisters, don't ever think that Swami is physically not there with us. He's there in and out. And I'm telling you, he will come when you are in distress. Just call out to him and he will come and help us at that moment. In fact, in an interview, when he was talking to us, one of the young boys asked Swami, when we are in distress and when we need you, would you come and help us out? Swami said, he was mentioning to us about the sound waves of a radio that used to come in India called Ceylon Broadcasting Corporation long back. And Swami said, when you want to hear a sound, of a radio, you have a fine tuning button on your transistor or radio. You need to fine tune that. In the good old days, this is today, we don't have that stuff. Swami said, I am like that. If you fine tune yourself to me, if you do that, then I am always there with you. I do not come by flight. I do not come by helicopter. I do not come by car. I am there in a split second, he said. And this is a clear evidence of divinity that he is always with us. We should have the trust in him, and the trust is the most important aspect for every youth member. Now, going forward, maybe another 10-15 minutes, I'll try to close. We asked Swami with what kind of an attitude should we render seva? All of us in our organization sphere, we would like to render seva, and we always ask Swami. We do sometimes with seva with great pomp and gaiety. We actually try to project our images in doing seva and all this thing. But Swami narrated a beautiful story, and he did mention it to us. Wherever you guys speak, you should definitely mention this story. The story goes like this. I believe in Bukkapatnam, there's a big tank there. One day a sadhu was actually walking on the banks of that lake, and he sees a young lamb is stuck in the marshy, shallow lands of that lake. A small lamb, and on the banks of that lake, there are a bunch of youngsters, I believe, who are pelting stones on this lamb, and the lamb is trying to avoid the pelting of the stones, and at the same time is finding it very difficult to pull out its legs and try to get itself free. And this was going on, and the youngsters were having a great gala time, enjoying this incident. At this time, Swami told us that there's a sadhu who was walking by. He suddenly sees this, and he pulls out his gown and he runs into the marshy waters, picks up the lamb on his shoulders with great difficulty and brings it back to the banks of the lake. And these youngsters come to this sadhu and say, "You think you're a great hero or what? You tried, we were having a great entertainment and you pulled out that lamb from there, and are you feeling you're a very big hero or something?" Then the sadhu replies, and this reply is the most important answer to our question, what attitude should seva be? Then the sadhu says, no, 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 don't think I am a hero. I'm not a hero at all. I'm a zero at all. I'm a zero. I was walking by, and at that point of time, I saw this lamp stuck in the marshy lands of this thing. I was also seeing that you were pelting stones. Nothing actually happened at that moment to me. But as I was still walking, suddenly there was a great pain in my heart, and this agony that actually came into my heart, I wanted to alleviate that suffering of my heart, and that is the reason I went there and saved that lamb and brought it to the banks. It is not a heroic feeling, but I tried to pacify my own heart which was suffering. Swami said this is the kind of feeling that you should do, when you should have when you're rendering seva. Every youth member, he said, when you are doing seva, do not think that you are doing seva. Think that you are actually elevating yourself or alleviating your pain from within, and you are rendering something. Don't actually have facts and figures that we have done this, we have done this. In fact, Swami also told us once when we were trying to reporting, Swami was very annoyed when we gave him a report. Swami said, first to do, then tell. You don't even need to come and tell me that you have done this. If you want for your own satisfaction, write a postcard and drop it. But I know every activity that you do. You should do sevas very, very selflessly. And this is a great guiding point for all of us. And that's how we should move forward. So I will now end with a story that I normally end all my satsangs. I already know that it's about 4:34 in India. That means I've shot by 5 minutes. This will take another 5 minutes, and after that, if there are any questions, we'll have. This is a story that an incident, a real incident that happened to us. This happened in the early 2000s when one day Swami, a very senior member of the Sathya Sai organization, Hyderabad, comes to us and tells us that Swami had called them for an interview, and Swami was very upset with us. The reason that Swami said, these boys from Hyderabad come, they render seva here, they stay here for 30 days, 45 days. They do kitchen work, they cook, they do everything there. Then one fine day they leave directly. None of them come for darshan, and I'm very annoyed, and that these boys don't come for darshan during seva time. Well, that was a very hard-hitting statement that Swami had made. So we all sat down in Hyderabad. We were a group of coordinated group of about 40 people. All decisions are taken very unitedly, and then we made a decision that all 40 of us, we will make a trip to Puttaparthi immediately, and this trip will be made to Puttaparthi with no seva activity, because every time we go to Puttaparthi, there is some kind of a seva activity that we take, whether it's a 5-day or a 2-day, 10-day, 50 days, 60 days. Anytime we are sure that we are doing there for a seva. So we wanted this to be a pure darshan visit. Go there, sit in darshan, eat, sleep, go back darshan, sit, eat, sleep. So we all went there, 40 of us. We planned for a 3-day trip, and we went there. The first day we had a good breakfast. We went sang. Swami came, he looked at us, and he went off. And it so happened that we went back, had lunch, we slept, we came back for darshan, and the boys were feeling, the second day, the boys were feeling very, very annoyed. And the younger boys came to me and another friend and a brother of mine, Uday, who also led the group at that point of time. Anna, what is this, Anna? What are we doing? I don't understand, Anna. This is very bad. We have come to Puttaparthi, but we are not able to do a service at all. We are eating, sleeping, we are doing. And they were annoyed. Then we said, nothing doing, no seva in this trip at all. You are not getting involved in any of the seva activities. You have to go only for darshan. So this happened the second day also, but the boys were very, very annoyed. So third day, in the morning, we had gone for a morning walk, the senior brothers, and we were coming back from the sheds, in the far east where the Sathya Vidya office is there. We were coming back, and we were walking there. Suddenly we felt a stench, a smell, a foul smell coming in, and we wanted to check out what it was. And it so happened that we went and we saw that some of the bathrooms were not very clean. There were a lot of, some of them were clogged and everything. And instantly, we 3 of us decided that, this is not good. This is an ashram. We should make it clean. So we went outside, brought some broomsticks, acid bottles, phenyl, everything, to clean up. And we went back to the rooms, woke up all the boys and said, enough of sleep, let's get to work. It was 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. We started working. And the thing was that we thought, let us clean all the public bathrooms and lavatories in Prashant Nilayam. We'll clean. And we assigned it to different teams. And we said, there's going to be a competition now. Which sparkles the best is what we have to look at it. And we were continuously almost over 187 or 86 bathrooms we were cleaning. And the fag ended, it was around 4:15 in the evening. We were doing the last set of bathroom cleaning. And there comes a Maruti car. And Mr. Chakravarti uncle and Mr. Chirendra Rao was administrator. Both of them drive up there. I am there and my entire team, our team is there. And Mr. Chirendra comes and says, hey, Junior Sitapati, my father's name is Sitapati. He calls me and said, what are you doing? I said, uncle, we are cleaning bathroom. Then he said, are you the leader? Well, I said, I knew that Mr. Chirendra was very annoyed. And this brother of mine, Uday was 18 days elder to me. I very coolly said, uncle, that fellow is the leader. Then he called him and he said, are you the leader? Then he said, tell me, uncle, what is it? He said, what are you guys doing? He said, Uday said that, uncle, we're cleaning bathrooms. Then he said, who gave you the permission to clean bathrooms? And this guy, a very straightforward, down-to-earth guy, he laughed at him. He said, what are you telling, uncle? What is it? Do we need to clean? We need to get permission to clean bathrooms in our home? This is my home, uncle. I'm cleaning bathrooms in my home. I don't need any permission. And the moment he said that, I knew that there was a big problem here. And it so happened that, Mr. Chirendra got very, very annoyed. They said, how are you talking to me like this? And in huff, they left. I told this fellow, you had told him like this. This gentleman, Mr. Chirendra, will now go and carry it to Bhagwan. Bhagwan is the Rama avatar, Krishna avatar, all avatars put together. He will listen to him. Tomorrow we are leaving. We are going to get a banging from Swami. Be rest assured. And this is what has happened. So we completed the entire thing. And next day morning, we were sitting. Swami walks up to the group. And as he is coming, he's saying, rowdy gang, rowdy gang, rowdy gang, rowdy gang. He comes up to us and said, hey, rowdy gang. Then he says, Amy. Then he asked us, when are you guys going? We said, Swami, we are leaving now, Swami. This afternoon we are leaving back to Hyderabad. Then he said, okay. Then he looked at us and asked us to go inside the interview room. So all of us, 40 of us are seated in the interview room. And Swami starts talking to us. And suddenly he says, Yem Chestri, what did you guys do yesterday? Then we said, Swami, we cleaned the bathroom, Swami. Then immediately the first reaction, Swami said, who gave you the permission? Then we all looked at this fellow, Uday, who was seated in our group. I said, Abul, now you talk. I told you yesterday, now this gentleman, Chirendra, will go and tell Swami. And Swami is now asking you the same question. Who gave you the permission? Then Uday, in his way of talking, he said, he just folded hands, Swami. Swami, no, Swami, this is our home, Swami. It is not the permission that is important, Swami. Swami, you gave us an opportunity to do this, Swami. We are grateful to you for giving us this opportunity to do seva in our home, Swami. Swami was so happy. The divinity that Swami showcased on that particular day is unbelievable. And he went on, then he started discussing on spiritual items. And at the end of the interview, Swami looked at us and said, hey, I want to ask you boys a question. Then Swami, we said, Swami, yes. So Swami showed himself. What does God gift as a reward to a good active seva worker? This was the question that Swami asked. Well, we had so many answers and we started answering so many ways, and Swami said, no. Then he said, I will tell you, God, and he showed himself. He said, God, the greatest reward God gives to a good seva worker is yet another opportunity of rendering seva. So the opportunity of seva for a youngster or for any human being is the greatest reward that God bestows. Dear brothers and sisters, we get so many opportunities in our life. We get day in and day out so many opportunities, and these are the opportunities that we should look for in order to redeem ourselves in our lives, in order to go forward, in order to be one with Him, in order to get a place in His divine heart and be one with him, and to travel that 4.5 feet distance from his divine feet to his holy heart, we need to strike at opportunities. Take the best of your opportunities of doing seva to be one with him. And this is the greatest reward that Swami gives us. At the end of the interview, he said, whether you guys believe or do not believe, I am revealing a truth, the greatest truth to all of you. You are all seated with the Parabrahma Swarupa. He said, the embodiment of the Parabrahman is right in front of you. This is the greatest blessing for all of you today. And this is what I am revealing. He sat like an emperor on the chair and said, all of you take Padanamaskarams. I bless you. I see that you will not have any birth moving forward. And with this beautiful words of Swami, I thank everybody from Singapore for attending this satsang, though a short one. Thank you very much. Jai Sai Ram.